creative.
We're going full frame on a budget. This is why I'm shooting the Sony A7R II in 2022. Let's get super creative. I'm Rob Lyons, and this is Super Creative. A while back, I was asked to shoot a couple of shots for the lobby of a brand new building, and I wanted to go pretty big. I was also in the market for a camera with higher resolution for printing in particular, so the timing was perfect for a new camera. But why, pray tell you, would I buy a 7-year-old camera? $1,200, that's why. I picked up this Sony A7R II for $1,200 brand new on B&H, with whom I have no affiliation. There are no sponsorships, discount codes, or affiliate links, just my experience on this one. $1,200 for a full frame, backside illuminated 42 megapixel camera with phase detect autofocus, IBIS, and 4K video. In fact, the A7R II was the first camera with a backside illuminated full frame sensor, and it was also the first to do 4K video with the full width of the sensor. Did I mention that this camera has 14 stops of dynamic range? So despite being pretty old, it's also pretty capable, not unlike myself. Alright, so there's a lot of bang for the buck, but if I was going to buy this camera, I would have to invest in some lenses. This is the #1 reason why I went with Sony, is because they get it with their mirrorless system. The lenses are pretty small and compact, as are the bodies. Now I'm coming from Micro Four Thirds, so I'm used to smaller, lighter, more affordable gear. And I used to shoot full frame on a D4 and also a 5D Mark II before that, so I'm not in any rush to get back into a big, heavy bag of expensive gear. What changed my mind was actually seeing the Tamron f2.8 zooms. The size, the price, the weight, it was the perfect ratio, right in the Goldilocks zone, if you will. So that's when I knew that the Sony system was a right fit for my needs, and that the A7R II at $1,200 was a great first step into the Sony ecosystem. The ability to make great images on a tight budget means a higher profit margin, and that is a big part of being super creative, which we'll touch on again in a minute. But first, I know what you're thinking. I can read your mind right through the screen. I have that power. You're thinking, okay, Rob, you listed some specs, you whined about not liking heavy lenses, and it sounds like you're a little bit cheap. So less talky, more hockey. Let's see some shots. Here you go. Landscapes, check. But what about people? Yes, for enough money, I will shoot people. Alright, here's a few shots of my friend and actor Kyle Mitchell. This camera was barely fast enough to keep up in the studio environment, so if I shot portraits more often, I think I'd buy a newer, faster body for that kind of work. The camera being a bit slow, the battery life being shorter than the duration of this video, and the absolutely dreadful menu system are the key negative points that have to be mentioned about the A7R II. Honestly, you will find the Lost City of Atlantis or Eldorado's Gold before you find what you're looking for in this menu system. Alright, how about low light? Here are a few shots from a new project I'm working on. These are all handheld, no tripods, no long exposures. With fast lenses, the camera does a good job at high ISO. It does a bit better than expected. Not mind-blowing, but no slouch in the high ISO department either. I was a bit worried after my first night out, but once I ditched the 2.8 zooms, started shooting f1.8 primes, everything was gravy. I love this thing with the 35mm f1.8. It's a perfect combo for a walk-around setup. I don't have much video to show you because I've only used it on one shoot I did for the Weather Channel. I did a quick spot with my wife while we were out of town on vacation, and it did okay. It was the one and only time that I've used this camera for video, as I picked up this Sony A7SIII pretty soon after. And I'm used to shooting 10-bit 422, and I can't go back to the 8-bit. So this is really a photography first camera for me, and if video or photo video hybrid is more your kind of thing, I think I would look at the A7 IV. It's a much better camera for both of those uses. So I hope I've shown you that maybe you don't need the most expensive, newest thing on the market to make exceptional work. You do need quality tools, but these tools can be 7 years old and still outperform a lot of newer, more expensive options. Gear is important, but it's only a means to an end, and that end is telling stories through images. Now, beyond of a creative tool, it was a good business decision. This camera paid for itself in literally one release of the shutter. The original photos that I took for the lobby of that building, we ended up printing them at 7 and 8 feet. They ordered 5 images from me, and one of them ended up being a 16-foot panorama. So we're going to feature that project on a new series I'm launching called Prince Robert, so stay tuned for that one. And instead of spending that extra money on a newer, bigger, better camera, we invested in some extra lenses, and we actually purchased some Sony stock, which has actually gone up a decent amount since then. Because being super creative, it doesn't stop at just making an image. It carries over to every aspect of life, especially the business side of professional imaging. Now, will I buy a better camera than the A7RII in the future? Definitely at some point. I'm actually looking forward to the A7R5 when it comes out, and, maybe I'll pick it up. Or maybe I'll wait till 7 years after it launches. Only time will tell. Do you love or hate the camera skins that I have on my gear in this video? Let me know in the comments, and also check out the linked video that tells you all about how I wrap them. That's going to do it for this one, guys. Until next time, we can be reactive or we can be creative. It all depends on how you choose to see.